Welcome out to the Backyard TARDIS. I'm Nicholas, everyone's favorite Time Lord locksmith, and I'm here with another podcast highlight. So strap in, everyone, because this time we're talking Sidescrollers.
It's time for Sidescrollers from Screw Attack with your hosts, Stuttering Craig, Chad.
I'm not having any fun. The plot's gone all to hell. And any second now, the outro is probably going to come in and cut us off from whatever we're...
And Professional Jared.
I hope your pretty little hands aren't tired, because you're going to make me a coat hanger.
And now, broadcasting from the World Screw Attack headquarters in Dallas, Texas, it's the Sidescrollers.
Welcome to Sidescrollers on ScrewAttack.com. What's going on, everybody? Hi, I'm Stuttering Craig.
Hey, Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS here with another podcast spotlight. Haven't done one of these in a while, and I figured it was time that I do one that is the podcast that started it all. If you haven't watched this channel before or know who I am a guy who, I'm a locksmith. So as the Backyard TARDIS is basically me. In between jobs, when I get a chance, I sit down in the back of my work van and I talk about the nerdy stuff I love. And I also talk about a lot of the nerdy stuff that's in the conversation of podcasts that I listen to. I work anywhere from 50 to 80 hours a week doing locksmithing, and I've got a podcast pretty much constantly in my ear throughout the day. Modern music just doesn't do it for me anymore. I like talk. I like the discussion. I'm a huge nerd. Big retro video games, Sega, Nintendo, Capcom, that kind of stuff. I'm huge into like Doctor Who, Star Trek, Stargate, Star Wars, Battlestar, whatever has a star in the name. I'm into that. Sonic the Hedgehog, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, you name it, comics, all that. I'm a nerd. And so that's what a lot of what I listen to. But I listen to all sorts of stuff, like podcasts about Disneyland and podcasts from comedians and just any old thing that you could have a podcast. I probably listen to it to the point now where I actively listen to over 60 podcasts. Now, when I say actively listen, that is over 60 podcasts that drop at least one podcast a month. The number of podcasts I'm subscribed to, some of them, they'll drop a podcast once every 3 months or whatever. That list is over 100. But actively am listening to, and I'm doing that, over 60. Now, ones that I never miss, I don't ever skip over all that, that you're getting into probably like my top 40. And I've even probably got about 8 or 9 podcasts that release multiple podcasts a week. On top of this, I listen to audio dramas and audio books, and that I've always got something nerdy going on in my ear. But today I wanted to talk about the one that started it all, that started my love of podcasts, and that's Sidescrollers. Yes, Sidescrollers. You can hear that beautiful Armored Armadillo music right now. Do 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 do. Oh, I loved it. So, Sidescrollers is something that started back February 15th, 2006. So, before like YouTube was even mainstream yet, this was starting. They had ScrewAttack.com, and ScrewAttack, before you think, oh no, that's not some naughty site. No, ScrewAttack is the attack from Metroid that Samus does. She does her signature ScrewAttack, and the co-founder of ScrewAttack Stuttering Craig was a huge Metroid fan. So that's where they came in the name, and the lightning bolt that was their logo. So that lightning bolt that you see right there, just amazing. Stuttering Craig, Handsome Tom start out, and this is just an audio only podcast. They're releasing this on a website feed. They're trying to get clicks on the website, to get advertising on a website. So they're having to pay for people downloading it, hosting all that. They're just two guys trying to entrepreneur, and they continue on this road, and then they branch out. Like, they're doing all sorts of things. What this podcast was the most entertaining 30 to 45 minutes of your video game week. That is what they promised, and that is what they delivered. Hijinks, just guys goofing around, talking about things. And you think about the time in the video game industry, this is when the Wii was coming out. You had the Xbox 360, like Sony was being dethroned. As powerful as the PlayStation 3 was, it was like bombing in the market at the time. And, Microsoft, Kinect, all this crazy motion sensor, all this stuff coming out. It was just a crazy inventive time in video gaming. And it is a time when you add up the Xbox 360, the Wii, and the PS3 sales numbers, like, to say it dwarfed all previous generations is an understatement. It was one of those things, like, you had, like, the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo, like, bam, they both almost sold 50 million, and I'm like, whoa, that's big, they were so close. But then Sony came out, and, like, the next 2 generations, like, Sony sold, like, double everybody else combined. But suddenly, like, here, Nintendo's hitting over 100 million, Xbox is hitting close to 100 million, Sony's getting like 80 million, like all of a sudden, everybody's doing well. The industry is just booming, and this is the time for something like Screw Attack to come about. And they just experiment anything that, the word of the week, or the phrase of the week, or quote of the week. That's what it was, quote of the week. And then that became the clip of the week, where they would take like a commercial or something, and they would just redo it. And skits. It was like Saturday Night Live, but better and on the cheap. It was just guys on the internet, and girls. Had Corey there, and then later Lauren, and a few others that would go through the doors, a few interns. But it's just great fun that they were having. Now, you saw that this, like, started to expand as they brought in High School Ben, Nervous Nick. You had Jose, you had Corey, you had Dustin. And then you brought in these ones, and it's starting to become a company. But at the same time, that's when, like Craig, Handsome Tom, they had their split, but Craig pressed on. Brought in Handsome Tom, went off and did his own thing. But it kept growing. Now, when did it catch my attention? Well, that would be June 13th, 2011. See, I'm a huge Sonic nerd. You've seen that on this channel. Like, the end of the last year, there was so much stuff going on with Sonic. I kind of, like, drowned out the channel. That's part of why I broke Adventure and Locksmithing off to its own channel. Because I felt like people were subscribing for that and then unsubscribing because this guy is talking too much about a hedgehog. But they had Mario versus Sonic and Death Battle. And I was just like, man, it blew my mind. To me, that's what YouTube was to find like funny clips and shorts. I was just searching Sonic. Anything, like, whether it be like speed runs or whatever, like little stuff like that on YouTube. And Death Battle came up. And it's funny because my love of Screw Attack, I love Screw Attack in every which way, all its warts, everything about it. But ultimately, Death Battle in a lot of ways eclipsed Screw Attack, and his YouTube algorithm, AI overlords decided to basically, that led to the death of the channel of Death Battle just becoming this huge thing, but it was also how I discovered Screw Attack. Because right then, they had just recently been going to video format podcast, promising 30 to 45 minutes, and that's how I discovered the podcast. Perfect lunch break. I would sit there and listen to it, and it started out, you had Dustin and Corey on with Craig, and I was just enthralled, and we got a couple episodes in, and then Dustin's like, I'm leaving. And it's like, oh, we're saying goodbye to this guy, and I'm like, oh, what's all this about? And then we got Chad and Pro Jared. Chad James, amazing guy. He is the voice of Boomstick on Death Battle. Just great fun guy. He brought the Chad to the thing, because he is a total nerd, but oh yeah, he was a skater. He was but then you brought in Pro Jared, who was kind of like your like super RPG nerdy into like all Japanese culture type guy, and not gonna really talk about anything there with that, but like Pro Jared, like now he's got his series now in the 90s. It does a really great job of showcasing, and that was one of the things. But it was the dynamic of this crew, and really the whole Screw Attack crew, but this crew that just made the podcast so great. And then we go through segments. What makes this podcast so great was how it was done in segments. And so each segment, about 10 to 15 minutes, but it was like snappy. You go through it, you get that, and each one was basically, could be clipped out as a YouTube video on its own, because it was enjoyable. So you had the first, like, okay, how they're doing, all that kind of, the cold open. But then you go out and you have the next one would be, you'd have the Sidescroller news desk hitting the music, and they would go over just crazy stories in the news, so many of them in Florida. And what's interesting is like this coincided with like the time period when like bath salts became a big thing, especially in Florida. So there were tons of stories about people like getting naked and running through Florida and eating people's faces. Crazy stuff there. But then you have also cultural stuff. I remember there was one time Craig went on the most epic rant ever over tacos. Somebody was suing a college university because they had like maximum Mexican night or something where they were like serving tacos and stuff. It was like in Carolina or something like that, but like the chef was putting on a sombrero and doing that, and it was like, they're tacos. Why are you offended? They're tacos. Like, if I go to Japan and I see some, barbecue place and a little Japanese man wearing a cowboy hat and he's doing Texas barbecue, like, am I gonna? He went on the whole thing and he's like, don't even get me started about Mexican pizza, because that's not even Mexican or pizza. It's just like he went on this epic rant, and it's funny because we see the world we are in now. We're like, because he was like super upset, like that this college actually did a public apology, and we're in a world now where like these companies are so afraid. Every institution is so afraid. The moment we just had limited run games, a person was fired because somebody said that they should be canceled, but didn't really have receipts. It's crazy, the world we live in now. But like early on there, Craig's like reacting to that. They would give him stories about like weird fancy art, just like stuff that would gross. So many great podcasts. The Fire Snake, the guy that like saw a snake and he lit it on fire, and then it went into his trailer and lit his trailer on fire. Just amazing, great, funny stories. Sepakuma, the like Murder You Bear. Just some of these they even had animated. Great. Definitely check those out. Where can you check those out? Some of it you can find on roosterteeth.com. Some of it has sadly been put away. You can't watch anymore, and who knows how much longer, as it sits now, roosterteeth.com is going to exist. All the sadness of Discovery Warner Media, is just crazy. But we'll get into that. So you fast forward, like Screw Attack is just growing their top 10s, video game vaults, all that stuff. And Sidescrollers is just a beast. You have Hard News, a daily video game news podcast. And then it was a segment on the podcast where they talked about this. And they're just such amazing time capsules to go back and see what gamers were so, like, into at the moment. What their feelings were on, like, motion gaming or stuff that was pushing, or like, oh, I don't like this, and now it's standard, or oh, I think this would be cool, and then like fast forward 5 years later, that was such a dumb gimmick. It's just fun to go back and listen. And whenever I'm feeling down, I go back and I re-binge the Sidescroller podcast. It was just so amazing, and they were growing, and Craig knew, he's paying these guys next to nothing. He's not making money. YouTube doesn't make money. At that time, we didn't have all the advertising. This was, forget Adpocalypse. YouTube didn't have a way to monetize it. It was all about selling their merch and selling DVDs of stuff they were putting on YouTube for free and all that kind of stuff. So Craig decided to sell to Full Screen. And, I appreciate that despite everything that happened from then on, Craig still says it's the right thing. It was the right thing to do, and he doesn't regret it, because it meant getting all those people that stuck by him, that put in there, it allowed them to get a proper paycheck. And, ultimately, it was good. Now, sadly, they later then bought Rooster Teeth, the guys that make Red vs. Blue and Ruby, bought them, and there was a lot of repeats. They had their own version of Hard News. They had their own, all this stuff, and they decided to just kind of merge and cancel shows. But what they were really interested in was Death Battle. And so slowly but surely, Screw Attack was that. And sadly, on October 10th, 2016. It still gets me. The Sidescroller story came to an end. The podcast was discontinued in lieu of, the Death Battle cast, which is great and it's phenomenal. And we got to see a lot of people who graced the Sidescrollers podcast would continue to be on that. But they were talking Death Battle. They weren't talking Hard News. They weren't talking about the Sidescrollers news desk. Craig went on to form with Sean Bolin Game Attack. And with Game Attack, they had the Try Hard podcast, which was fun. But it wasn't the same. It had a different attitude, a different flow. And at the time, you get this with a lot of creators. You look at the creators. I'm a huge Stargate fan. And you got the guys who made Stargate. They're feeling really nostalgic. They're saying, let's go back. Let's do more. But at the time when Stargate Universe came out, they wanted change. That's what Game Attack was. Game Attack was change from the status quo. To refresh. But then Craig left Game Attack, and he kind of started off on his own, and he had a short-lived podcast called Craig Skits Podcast. And if you're a fan of Sidescrollers, I definitely say check this out. It is on his YouTube channel, and it's a playlist. It's like, I think he only had like 16 one of these, but these were interviewing some of the different people that he worked with throughout his career, to see just, have that conversation with them, reminisce, talk about it. I mean, you gotta realize the impact that Sidescrollers had. If there was no Screw Attack, if there was no Sidescrollers, I don't think the Angry Video Game Nerd would be as big as he is, because he was an early partner with them. Matt Pat was a fellow G1 in the community, posting videos on the Screw Attack website. That's how he got his, game theory, which then became film theory and GT Live and now food theory. And he's about to launch another channel that we're going to learn about soon. And it's like, Matt Pat takes over the world. Angry Video Game Nerd. They're just, the list goes on and on. Even people who were like the Game Grumps. There were so many people that did stuff with Screw Attack. It was a place to go and get your stuff seen. So he got to talk with a number of those individuals from back then. So great interviews if you want to hear some stories about early internet life. And then he did a podcast for a year called Weekdays with Craig and Brad. This is where his brother Brad, who, he did the character Unaware Steve on Screw Attack. They came on, did a podcast, and there was definitely a lot of fun moments, a lot of good community moments, but I gotta say, this was, once again, it just wasn't the feeling of Sidescrollers wasn't there. One, this wasn't a podcast. This was a live stream. And it was so much, and this is a time back in 2021 when community was just so frustrated over COVID. And that became a topic of discussion. And it just almost felt like ones in the chat were fighting with each other. And they were saying, hey, let's just have a conversation. But alas, a great conversation just couldn't happen. But Craig left making videos for a year, and I thought, okay, that's the end of it. I still enjoy all these people who are involved in it. They're still making Death Battle. Like I said, ProJared's doing Now in the 90s. You got Angry Video Game Nerds still making content. Matt Pat's out there making content. The Completionists out there making content. All these different ones. Comic Drake's out there making content. Just different ones that had passed through those doors. And then it just seemed like that was it. But you know what time it's for? It's time for the Back to Our TARDIS News Day. Hit the music.
Anytime there's a big announcement, there's always some grandiose trailer with cringe stock footage and over-the-top music and dramatic voiceover. So that's what I did, and I made it the most cringy thing I could possibly do to announce the return of an old friend. After decades of prosperity, in the mid-2010s, the internet and society took a sudden descension into madness. A world of happiness quickly turned into a hellscape of anger. Social media took hold and slowly sucked the life, joy, and meaning out of using the internet. Many have tried to pinpoint the exact moment the decay in society began. And after years of research and countless millions of dollars investigating using the world's foremost technology, we now have the answer. October 10th, 2016. The date of the 554th and final legendary world uniting experience. After After consulting for months and spending countless millions of dollars, dignitaries from around the world have come together for the first time and unanimously have come to one common agreement. To correct the wrongs, lift society up, and attempt to restore happiness once again. The time is now for the legend to return. It's time for Sidescrollers on YouTube.com. With me, Stutter and Craig. People are going to turn it down. Don't let them. You guys got to go get it. You guys say it every single night. I mean it. Destin.
This is the game. Leverage and play the game with the regulators.
Featuring the best gaming and entertainment news from around the internet, live every weekday. And now, broadcasting in our homes from around the internet, it's Sidescrollers.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome on out to Sidescrollers on YouTube.com. What's going on, everybody? Hey, I'm Stuttering Craig. Sidescrollers debuts February 15th, 2023. I cannot wait to bring this show to you guys Monday through Thursday here on YouTube and on Twitch, and then on Friday for patrons, as well as post shows available for patrons over at patreon.com/Sidescrollers. Once again, you guys are going to be the lifeblood of this show. You're going to decide whether this thing works or not, but I cannot wait to bring this show back to you guys. Starts very soon. Spread the word. Tell a friend. Let's get going.
Wow. Just wow. February 15th, Sidescrollers is coming back. Hooray! This is brilliant. There's gonna be and Destin's back. Destin's back. Boom. Just mind blown. This is what the world needs right now. This is what the gaming industry needs right now. This is what podcasting needs right now. The OG Greg Skitzman's back at it again and doing a proper Sidescrollers podcast. We're getting the news desk. We're getting hard news. We're getting it all. Oh, let's go. Let's go. You know, Craig always says, you have a goal, got a dream, go get it. And that's exactly what he's doing, and I'm here for it. I hope you all join and check out Sidescrollers February 15th as it launches now. And all I got to say is, that's a pen toss. And this was hard news.